This episode of Bollyfalls was brought to you by Air India.
Yes.
Flying Indians out of war zones.
Yes, and where your stomach never aches and pains when you come off the plane after eating the food.
This is the review of Bus Trip.
So guys, earlier on today, me and Ravi jumped into a plane, or was it a bus?
It should have been a bus, but it was a plane.
So we flew all the way down to Wandsworth, landed on the top of the building, threw our ropes down into the cinema hall, and sat down in our seats that weren't even ours.
Because there was so much space.
Yes. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, there was so many people, there was hardly anyone there.
There was nobody there.
Yeah.
So, we went to check out Airlift. The story, the fictionalized dramatization, Akshay Kumar's kick-off of 2016, the story of 170,000 plus Indian civilians who were in the middle of a war zone during Saddam's rise to chaotic overlord Ranbir Kapoorness. And it was the true story, or is the true story, of the largest civilian evacuation in history. A story that neither of us knew about until we saw the trailer last year. And we were really excited to see that story come to life. And it was about Akshay Kumar's character, Ranjit, and how he engineered this dramatic civilian evacuation and saved 170,000 lives.
Wow. That sound. Now, we telling you that, and Ravi telling me that, although I've seen the film, I'm super psyched. Let's start with directing. So, Ravi, it's directed by Raja Menon.
Menon?
Menon or
Menon.
Manon? I thought it was Manon, right? Manon, right? Okay.
Menon.
And I've got to be real with you here because we haven't had this conversation. We leave it to this point, right? I don't know how you felt, but I felt really bored. Okay, and look, it just felt, and what I mean by that, it was the pacing of the film just felt very two-dimensional, very flat. I don't think the characters had enough depth, and there was a lot of characters.
Yeah.
You know, and look, I just felt through that. I wish I had your mobile phone and I was going out because I think that would have been more exciting for me.
So, the challenge with this was you've got a real life story. And you can't go too far away from it because it is such a personal story to so many people. Right. So clearly he tried to go down the let's make this as neutral and accurate as possible. I will say this, it was flat. There wasn't a very good kind of ebb and flow of emotion. You didn't feel connected to anything or anyone. And it made it really hard to root for people. Obviously everybody being good human beings, and there was a lot of, oh, look at the morality of this. You want to see them saved, but it's the director's job to kind of connect you to the film. And he did a really mediocre job of that. It was like reading a book without any emotion or adjectives in it.
Right. Now, there was a number of scenes that just kept on throwing us out the film. Like, let's talk about, and it is a bit of a spoiler, guys, so let's talk about this scene where our main character, Akshay Kumar, comes back from negotiating the deal with the Iraqis. He comes back to tell the people that they're going to be on a ship and it's going to take them out the next day, right? When he comes back, and I'm at that point, I'm really excited. This is before the interval, right? And when he comes back, Ravi, what happens? They just friggin' start singing and dancing. What the hell was that about? It just didn't fit the piece, and at that point, threw me straight out of the film.
It did, and I just want to talk about cinematography a little bit. We'll get to Akshay Kumar, which is what everybody is really here for. But from a cinematography standpoint, this film should not have been shot on film. If it was shot on video, as in digital, it would have helped give you some grittiness and some more feel for the war zone. And there was a lot of stuff where if you were shooting on video and you were tightening things up, not just that, but there were plenty of scenes where you would have had a bit more grit and a bit more feel. And one of the other bits, when he evacuates and gets away with 150,000 Indians, they're in dire straits, they're limited on food and all this, but Akshay Kumar and his family are chilling, just like having chane and rice, and they're just chilling out.
Yeah.
And It doesn't make sense.
We had this conversation. His wife is in a friggin' war zone, but in every single shot, she looks like she's just come out of a fashion shoot.
She does.
Really does.
Yeah.
And you know what? And it takes away from the realism of this film, making you feel what the hell is actually going on. Are we in a war zone? Are we in a cafeteria? Or are we in a friggin' photo shoot?
Yeah, or a 5-star restaurant.
Oh, right, yeah.
So there was, there's a lot there. Guys, if you're still watching, it's not all bad. Okay? Unfortunately, the bit that everybody seems to be saying was standout amazing, I think both of us found was pretty average actually, and that is Akshay Kumar.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to have to agree with you. Again, we haven't had this conversation. It's funny you said that because I feel the same way. Because through that, Akshay Kumar's performance didn't make me feel like I am believing that this character is really the character that took these people from dusk to dawn.
And there's a few scenes early on when everything's falling apart and he thinks his family has been either taken or killed.
Oh, right.
And he does this thing that some actors do, where they say, okay, this is my moment to have a nervous breakdown because my family's been taken away. Let's ignore the emotional progression to get to that point, or the part that gets you out of that point, which is how normal human beings experience emotion. He just goes, and you see like stuff coming out of his nose, and I'm like, it's not easy to cry and blow your nose and all that stuff at the same time, but it didn't seem genuine, and that was the problem with his performance throughout. In isolation, in certain scenes, he was good. When he was playing the moral high ground, when he was being firm, when he was being a leader, really, really good. When he was trying to experience the more subtle emotions in Airlift, it didn't come across very well, and that made it really hard to connect with him and root for him.
Yeah, so what's interesting is that we felt that the actual star of the show was a chap that we don't know.
Collie,
yeah, there we go. Collie was the man of the show. Collie, I felt, should have been more about Collie's, not necessarily his journey, but Collie should have had more screen time, because when Collie was on screen, you actually really believed that this person truly was trying to understand Akshay Kumar's situation, but also all the messed up situations that he was going through to convince the Indian government to help the people that are trapped in Iraq.
There was one thing that he did really well, and it's difficult. When the very first phone call comes through from Akshay Kumar, and he's talking to him, he says stuff in a very flat, very professional, very apathetic tone, but you can see all of the internal struggle. You can see through his eyes, through his mannerisms, you can see that he is struggling because he knows he should, and he wants to help, and then he does, but at no point does he lose that I'm a professional, I'm doing this, but this is touching my heart, and therefore little bit by little bit by little bit, when he gets to the point, spoiler, where he's trying to convince the pilots,
right,
you can see it's coming from in here, but he's trying to maintain his external professionalism, and that's not easy, and he did that really, really well, and that I think is what part of the reason why it connects with us. Yeah,
one of the other things that brought us out was Akshay Kumar's wife, her performance in it. I mean, she was fine, you know, she went along with what the script had to say. It's cool, but, and we've seen her in 24, was it?
She was in Homeland.
Homeland, alright, my bad.
And the Tilda Basmati advert.
Okay, and she's pretty cool in the Tilda Basmati advert.
Very good.
And she's freaking awesome in Homeland.
Yep.
In this, unfortunately for us, she didn't shine. She just came across as this very annoying character, all about her. And obviously, Akshay Kumar, you know, trying to be there for the people, and her feeling that he's not there, obviously, for her and their daughter.
Yeah, and there was a lot of that, wasn't there?
Yeah, a lot of that.
If you're still watching, there are some nice moments, because actually the principle of the story is, what will you do when your fellow man, your fellow countryman, even though I think it should just be your fellow man, what will you do when they're in trouble? And there are a few occasions, and it's a bit cheap in fact, but the way the film handled that was they had Akshay Kumar, who previously wasn't so I'm an Indian, and at certain points during the film wasn't so I'm an Indian, but he was the good guy. He was the one with the moral high ground. He was the one when a woman was being accused of being a Kuwaiti and risking everybody else, that he would go and save her. And the film used the cheap trick. It had another character who epitomised all of the disgusting and horrible things. George.
Oh my God, someone shoot George. I reckon if someone just shot George, right, at the beginning, you just see George saying his little bit and you realise how annoying he is. One of the guys just like takes his pistol out, shoots him in the head. This film would have been fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Well, not awesome, it would have been bad.
I just want one last point really, because I think we're doing a lot of negative stuff, and that's not going to stop, because actually there was a moment at the border in the film with the only fight scene in the film, right, of any note, and it was terrible because it cut away from any of the actual contact.
You know, dude, I forgot about that, but
it cuts away, and B, it was awful because all the way through the film, the guards are basically just going shooting everyone they don't like, and they're just chilling out whilst Akshay Kumar versus like 4 or 5 guys is just beat him up. Then Akshay Kumar finds his weapon of choice. What's his weapon of choice?
Right, so he picks up what seems to be a stone, but me and Ravi like kind of whispered at each other, is that a loaf of bread?
Yes, because that's exactly what it seemed like it was. Yeah. So he breaded. He breaded a guard to submission. And that leads to one of what is supposed to be a crescendo moment.
Yes.
Da-da-da! The people have come together, they're fighting up against oppression, and they're going to do this how? By getting off the bus, running around a hill, running back up over a hill, just to appear.
Like they're in strength and numbers.
Exactly. And that leads to them charging towards the guards and then stopping just before they have the conversation.
Yeah, they charged all the way to the guards and they just, that was so bizarre, they just stopped right there. Yeah. When you think, oh my God, they're going to kill him, they're going to kill him. Yeah. It's like, gave him some Rotley, some Charlie.
Yeah, and then just chill out, and he goes, you'll stay alive.
So, is there any redeeming points of this movie that you could think of?
Well, nobody's watching this, right? So right now. But...
Yeah, except for Collie. Is there anything else that you could think of?
So, 2 things. There's this really, really attractive Kuwaiti girl on the bus.
Yeah, she's pretty hot.
She's pretty gorgeous. And I just found myself laughing because Akshay Kumar goes in to like kind of save her in a way. And he picks up the little boy, her little boy, and he just carries him around. And the little boy is he's like 3 or 2, and he's just chilling out. He's like, everyone's in a war zone. He's like, hey, what's going on? Hi, Akshay Kumar. He's just chilling out. Gets in the car, drives off. I didn't find... It wasn't that we didn't like the film. I don't think it was that. I think it was that we were just indifferent. It was just like, ugh. And I couldn't connect to anything.
Yeah. Now, we've seen other films like this. There's a particular American film that everyone's talking about. I don't think it matches up with it because they are kind of 2 different stories. But it's kind of the same thing. It's that same sort of field. People trapped in a different country need to get out. And the way that...
Oh, like Argo.
Oh, shit, you said it. Oh, I'm rabbit. Anyway, the way that was paced and brought forward, you were really into... It was friggin' super tense all the way through. And this film really, truly had so much potential. It did. The message is friggin' awesome. So we're not going to take anything away from the message. Awesome message. It just could have been delivered so much better. And I think if there was another director on board, maybe the script was tighter, the directing was, screwed up a bit more, it could have just worked out to be a good film.
So, and you can tell that this was written by 3 different people. So
4 or 5.
4.
Yeah, there's a good couple.
Okay, so you're right. With a different director, because there's nothing actually wrong with the story. The story's fine. It's the way the story's told that's the problem. And actually, Kumar actually can act better than he did in this, and he probably just needed some direction. So, guys, I hate to say this, but Bus Trip, and the reason I'm saying Bus Trip is because even though the film's called Airlift, they spend more time in a bus than they ever do flying anywhere. Bus Trip, unfortunately, was not a fulfilling journey. It was not a fulfilling journey. And it's a shame, because we both really, really wanted it to be.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, as Ravi's been saying, I don't think there's anybody at the other end right now.
No one watching this.
If there is someone still there, we really appreciate that you've taken the time to listen to this very negative review on Bus Lift. It's in my head now, I'm saying Bus Lift. Bus Lift. Anyway.
Oh, boy.
All right. By the way, there was one song that was good. Yeah, there was one song.
There's decent background music.
Yeah. But thanks, Adobe.
Thanks, Adobe.
All right. Okay. It's your boy Salam.
Ravi.
Peace out.
Take care.
Oh boy.